Two beer nerds and 7 beers. This is FreshFest with Guzzle and Frag.
All right, so we're on the last beer of the night, and it is called Brewers Gonna Work It Out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and last beer for this video.
Yes. And again, it's a collaboration, as all the beers have been, between Shubrew and then Forest City. And Shubrew is from Pennsylvania, but Forest City is from New Jersey. And we were a little perplexed by this beer because initially when we saw pastry on the can, we thought, hey, that's pastry stout. Cool. We'll do that one last. It'll be super sweet and it'll be a good one to end on. But then we look closer at the can. It actually says pastry style dark ale. And so we were a little thrown by that because it is not a stout. It is a dark ale brewed with lactose, and basically we had to look up what was in there, and then Kent found out what was in it.
Yeah, so actually what's really interesting about this beer is that it's a dark wheat ale that's brewed with cacao nibs, vanilla, lactose, and get this, pastry-wise, Oreo cookies. So this is like straight up like dessert. It should be dessert on the palate, and like I am really excited for it.
Yeah, so not a stout. Wheat ale, technically, you know, typically when you think of wheat ales, you're like, oh, a Hefeweizen or something, but this is not going to be that, I can say, probably.
But with that lactose, you would hope that it like simulates that stout kind of mouthfeel and maybe flavor.
Maybe. There's actually, I don't know the laws in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, but they don't have the ABV on this can. So we don't even know how boozy it is.
Oh, okay.
So it could be up there. We don't really know.
So here's the thing. I still have it pulled up on the phone. 9%.
Okay, 9%.
So it's not too bad.
Not crazy. But
I was thinking like 11 initially, but like 9. That's okay. Another Public Enemy.
Yeah, Public Enemy is definitely like the theme
reference
of a lot of the artwork and kind of the names of the beers and stuff. And you know, the time we're living in, it makes a lot of sense. Public Enemy was an early kind of hip-hop group that was very much anti-authority in their style. So very understandable about what's happening right now.
A little relevant to the times,
yes.
for sure. And I think that you had pointed out somewhere on the label, like one of the guys is actually holding a Black is Beautiful can.
Yeah, he's got a... Yep.
Which once again is very relevant to what has been happening across the nation.
Totally.
Right? With like a lot of funds that have been donated to charities based upon like beer sales. So
yeah, and we donated.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I can say Oreo cookie is in there.
I get cookie. I do get cookie on that.
Oh, so. Yeah. I was saying, so we donated $1,500. One of the 3 beneficiaries was Black Lives Matter. I don't know off the top of my head how much of the $1,500 went to BLM, but we're definitely like supporters of the cause and everything. And so go watch the whale races if you haven't seen those yet, and see how we raised all that money. Yeah, and we're lucky that, I mean, I guess beer is a culture that, you know, people really can rally behind these kinds of things. And we saw a lot of support there, too. And again, it's like part of the Fresh Beer Fest, exactly the same mentality is like we need to throw our support behind organizations that are doing really good work and kind of advancing good things. So that's why one of the reasons I decided to do this. But you know what? It's time to get a taste of this crazy beer. Cheers.
Cheers.
Dark ale with lots of adjuncts, including Oreos.
You can definitely smell the cacao, like just right off the bat. A little bit of that cookie.
Okay. What do you think?
Okay.
What was the first flavor you got out of that?
Definitely chocolate. I think that's probably the easiest thing to say. A little bit of like cracker, not necessarily like cookie.
Like graham cracker, maybe?
I could say, yeah, maybe a little bit more like graham cracker. off the top of my head, like it's nice, it's light, it's not as silky as I thought it would be, but
Yeah.
I thought maybe the lactose would bring a little bit more of that, like kind of like heavier, silkier, more, once again, I love the word voluptuous, but like a little bit more of a voluptuous mouthfeel, but it's just like, it definitely tastes more like a dark lager. Well, mouthfeel wise, it's more like a dark lager.
I get tons of
than
peanut
anything
butter.
else. Oh yeah.
That was the first thing that jumped
Yeah.
out to me was peanut butter, and it's not supposed to be an adjunct in here.
But peanut butter's great, and I'm very okay with
Like
that.
chocolate peanut butter, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Not necessarily like, don't get this wrong, like not Reese's Pieces or Reese's peanut butter cup wise, but at the same time there is a little bit of peanut butter on the end. It's almost like if you take like a dark chocolate and you dip it into like peanut butter and you take a bite. I think you're right. Absolutely. Once you pointed out peanut butter, that's it. As like I'm breathing out or exhaling.
It's interesting because like it doesn't have the body of a stout like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have the roastiness. It doesn't have like it's a little thinner than your average stout,
Yes.
but it tastes pretty damn good. And like I'm not mad at this beer at all.
Mm-mm. And now, maybe because you did say it, like on the nose, you do smell like peanut butter, right? Like, oddly enough, this is a little odd, maybe far-fetched, but it's like almost soybeans. I know that's weird, but like I actually do get a little soybean there.
Wow. That would not be a flavor I would have picked out, but I mean,
No.
that's why we're doing this. So.
Yeah, no, nose-wise, like soybeans, but it just reminds me of like soy milk. But at the same time, like the peanut, it does kind of like shine. But maybe, I guess, do you think that's like more roasty, like toasty, kind of like flavor and nuance?
What,
that
the
you're
peanut?
getting? Yeah, peanut.
Maybe. You know, it's really interesting because Prairie, we were talking about Prairie earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Prairie made a beer, I can't remember the name of it, but it was an Oreo themed beer. And all it was an Imperial Stout with Oreos added. And when I drank it, I was disappointed because I didn't get any Oreos.
Zero.
Yeah, zero. And in this, like you can actually smell the Oreo.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the taste is not quite what I expected, but I'm also not disappointed because it tastes like chocolate and peanut butter to me.
And maybe that's what the Oreo has actually like contributed to this beer, right? Is a little bit of that, like
Maybe
that,
the cream,
yeah, the cream kind of gave it that, like a little bit of that nuance.
That could be what's
right?
going on, yeah.
Because you wonder where the peanut came from because it's not, once again,
Not supposed to be there, yeah.
no, it was not an adjunct, but like you're absolutely right. There's that nuttiness that makes this.
When we found out it wasn't a stout, we were a little alarmed for a second there, but it's like it's really interesting beer on its own. So that's all you can really ask for.
It's still really, really tasty, and you get a lot of flavor off of it. I think that the part where maybe like they could have done a little bit better is, I guess, maybe a little bit more lactose or something to just kind of make it a little bit more fuller bodied, right? Like this is appropriate for the season that we're approaching, like kind of like an early fall. Seems like it's more like a porter, not even like necessarily dark lager, but like porters in the way that porters are typically like a thinner version of a stout in that way. I think that's what I would kind of see here as opposed to just like, what is lactose dark lager, right? So it's still really, really tasty.
I'd love to see the approach they took, the two brewers that got together to say, what are we going to make, right? And it'd be really easy to say, oh, we'll make a pastry stout. We'll make an Oreo stout, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And be like, okay, done, right? But it's like, no. Well, how about we take the idea of doing a pastry stout, except we don't make a stout. We make a wheat ale.
A wheat ale,
Which is like a really weird combination. And on paper, it's like, how does that pencil out? Well, normally you wouldn't do that, right? And like these guys decided, no, you know, maybe it was this was the conversation. It's like, well, that's a challenge. So now we're interested. So let's make this weird, like super weird style. And yeah, it's like, you know, the end result is, what do they call it? A pastry style dark ale, not
that's right, not like
not a
lactose,
stout
but
or even a wheat ale. They call it a dark ale. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
I apologize. I think that I may have said like dark lager in there, but dark
It's not
ale.
lager, no,
I
it's an ale.
apologize.
Yeah.
Yes, dark ale. Yes.
It's very peculiar, this
Indeed.
style. And I feel like they did a really good job. In fact, like I have a friend who loves peanut butter beers. He would love this. Chocolate, peanut butter, just really good sweetness, but not over the top. And then obviously the body is a little unique because it's not a stout. There's almost no roast, but I do like the mouthfeel of it. It's thick.
Yes.
Well, somewhat thick. Not crazy thick, but like thicker than your average wheat beer, I would say.
Not THICC, just the regular plain old THICK.
There you go.
It's just a little bit thicker than normal.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm cool. I'm hip.
You talk about beers that are sticky. This has that very, very light level of stickiness, but I really like that, and especially barley wines, quads, Scotch ales, strong ales, old ales, and this is approaching that, but it's not quite there. And like again, like the wheat ale aspect of it is interesting because, yeah, do they mean Hefeweizen? Do they mean like a wheat wine? Like what is wheat ale in the context? Or sorry, dark ale. You were the one who found out it was made with wheat.
That, as far as like Untapped said, it was a wheat ale. And in that way,
because when I hear dark ale, I think either a dark sour or a Belgian style. So you talk about Belgian dark, like, I don't know, a triple or a quad, maybe.
Oh, fair. And in that way, like, as we were talking about like a wheat ale or a wheat wine or anything of that nature, my first instinct was to actually think about Goose Island, that wheat wine that they had released, right? Like in that way. So it's just kind of thinking about how that tastes compared to like this. Because that wheat wine was actually really wonderful. Like,
Yeah.
But this is still.
It's definitely different, yeah.
Ever since like you said peanut butter, like that's I love peanut butter, man. Like that's exactly
what I get
where
out
my
of
head's
this.
at. Yes, yeah, and like that's you brought it forward. So like you keep telling me, he keeps saying like, oh yeah, man, like I don't really have this like great palate, but like it's bullshit. Because you pulled out the peanut butter and it is 100% like it is evidently like it is there.
In fact, this is a better peanut butter beer than a lot of peanut butter beers that I've tried that are actually trying to do that flavor.
Yes.
This sort of pulls it off without even trying.
Listen, maybe we're like super weird, but I really do feel like, and I'm not blowing smoke, like I 100% agree, like it is absolutely there. I just do wish there was a little bit more body here, but
Yeah.
like the flavors are 100% like
You
on
might
point.
be right. Maybe the secret weapon is the cream.
Yeah.
And that was what made it transform from just kind of this wheat ale with a bunch of adjuncts in there to something that was like pillowy and
Yeah,
like
because it's like
chocolate and peanut butter, and that like maybe the cream was the secret weapon there.
maybe it was
Yeah.
because it's just like, you have like cacao nibs and like vanilla and like all of these very like commonplace adjuncts, right? But then if you actually use like Oreo versus maybe like an off-brand of Oreo, right? Like maybe that cream actually kind of transferred it, or because it is like a wheat ale in that way.
Not what we expected in a good way, because we were just like, pastry stout, we've had hundreds of them, thousands of them probably.
Yes.
Not to say that like it would have been a bad beer, but it was like we kind of know what to expect, and then we were pleasantly surprised that it wasn't a stout, even though we're ending on it thinking it was, and it wasn't until we pulled it out of the cooler, we're like, oh crap, this is not a stout, And then Kent looked it up. Turns out there's a lot more going on.
Let me clarify. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't doubt that. Never has blacked out. Ever at all.
True story.
Yes.
We hope you enjoyed our FreshFest impressions. Thanks to my buddy Kent for joining up and sharing the beers. Like, subscribe, and let us know what you think. More great beer content's on the way. Hashtag Fresh Fridays, and we'll see you next Friday for a wrap-up of FreshFest 2020. Cheers.